Right now on Upfront.
Election stunner.
And let's win on November 3rd.
David Crowley surging to a razor-thin victory, beating Democratic Socialist Francesca Hong in the chaotic Democratic primary for governor.
The fight continues no matter what.
Now the race to November. Republican Tom Tiffany with an official opponent.
Congratulations to David.
This Sunday, in their first sit-down interview since the election, David Crowley and Tom Tiffany are with us. The new interviews just moments away. Then the polls.
Campaigns matter.
Already new polls in the field, and this Sunday, the exclusive first look at the Crowley-Tiffany matchup. Republican strategist Keith Gilks, Democrat Tanya Bjork, here to unveil it all.
This is Upfront with Jaron Jordan and political director Matt Smith.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. What a week. David Crowley beating Francesca Hong by roughly 3,800 votes. The culmination of a wild and chaotic Democratic primary for governor. And now this weekend, the sprint to November and our new interviews with Tom Tiffany and David Crowley. Their first sit-downs after Tuesday's stunner.
The next governor of the great state of Wisconsin.
David Crowley in Milwaukee Wednesday night, just hours after securing a stunning victory over Democratic Socialist Francesca Hong. Now this weekend headlining a unity tour after a fractured and chaotic Democratic primary. Francesca Hong called you when the results came in?
Yeah, she called me early that morning to let me know. Basically, wanted to thank me for the type of race that we won, congratulated me, and I congratulated her on the type of leadership that she showed throughout this entire campaign, but also for pushing us even further. And so, my goal is to make sure that we can create that unity. We've already had our unity breakfast and started doing tours across Wisconsin already. But I know that I have to earn every single vote out there moving forward, and that's exactly what we're going to do together.
Was the call really that cordial, as you just described?
Actually, yeah. I mean, I've known Francesca. We've always had great conversations. We've always been one of those, with all the campaigns, actually, I've always talked to everybody. And so it was a cordial conversation. And it was a quick conversation. We lasted less than 5 minutes, but it was a good conversation.
What happened in this primary over the last month was remarkable. Could you have pulled this off, do you think, without Governor Tony Evers and his endorsement?
I'm glad that we've had the support of Governor Evers. As we was crisscrossing, and you've probably heard me say this, but I've been keeping up with him. And to see the type of support and respect and love that he has across this state was tremendous and honorable to see. But to have his confidence in my judgment, in my leadership, and in my abilities to organize across this state, I think translated to voters in rural, suburban, and urban communities alike, and helped get us over the finish line.
Francesca tapped into something with her supporters. She had controversy also that followed her. She campaigned with, she raised money with Hassan Piker, the controversial streamer. Would you ever consider doing the same between now and November to win over that base of the Democratic vote?
Look, I think that we have to reach voters where they are, and wherever we have to do that. But I have my ways of doing that. I don't want to lend credibility to platforms, if you will, that I believe further divides us as a community, further divides Democrats, or further divides this country. But I do know that we have to focus on bringing everybody under this tent. And so I'm always willing to have those tough conversations. But we also have to utilize not just myself, but there are many community members, there are many voters, there are many supporters that we can empower to bring people up to be a part of this big tent we call the Democratic Party.
When you're talking about dividing, are you talking about Hassan?
I'm talking about anybody who focuses on, divisive language.
So you are leaving the door open or not to campaigning with him?
With Hassan?
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I don't plan on campaigning with Hassan, if that's what you're asking me.
That's what I'm asking.
No.
You told a group of supporters recently, in recent weeks, that there's not a lot of policies that you really differ from with Francesca Hong. Is that opening the door to you supporting the Democratic Socialist agenda, or what did you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that there's many things that everybody agrees on, right? I agree with, folks that, for example, that we need safe communities. I'm not sure if that's a Democratic or a Republican talking point. We need to make sure that we have access to public education, and we need to have access to health care. Look, when it comes down to Fran and I, yes, there are some things that we absolutely disagree on. But what we do agree on is that we can come to a table just like this and negotiate how we move our party, how we move our people forward.
Republicans are already out saying, well, listen, you're no different than her. You're all democratic socialists. You're all advancing that agenda. You're going to say what to that attack that's already coming out on the campaign?
Well, you know, the difference between, you know, me and many of these Republicans saying that is I have a track record. You know, I'm the only candidate in this race that actually has done things, not just for Milwaukee County and the different municipalities that I represent across the political spectrum. But we brought Democrats and Republicans together to bring money back to every single community.
We're hearing you talk about Tom Tiffany. Tom Tiffany is starting to talk about you. One of the things we heard even just today in these first couple days was, listen, as county executive, you proposed property tax increases. You oversaw a near collapse in health insurance for county employees. So why should voters trust you?
Well, look, what he won't tell you is that we're picking up the mess that actually Scott Walker actually left for us, right? You know, Scott Walker was the county executive and didn't do anything to fix the pension. Matter of fact, he ran up a $400 million credit card and put it on the backs of property taxpayers here in the state of Wisconsin, and became the governor and made things not only worse for Milwaukee County, but for every single municipality. And when you talk to these rural communities, they're always wondering, when is the state going to step up and give that shared revenue? And so I am focusing on delivering results. And what we've been doing is moving Milwaukee County forward. We have the lowest unsheltered homeless count per capita than any community in the United States, and we're a Democratic bastion. We've lowered overdose deaths more than any community here in the state of Wisconsin, and I want to continue to deliver for everybody across the state in the same way.
Is Scott Walker the reason, though, you needed to propose a property tax increase?
Well, the reason why we had to focus on shared revenue reform is because Republicans who've controlled the legislature for the past 15 years weren't willing to work with local municipalities. And when Governor Evers proposed different types of fixes, they continued to block him. What I'm focusing on is Democrats not playing defense anymore. By electing Democrats up and down the ballot in the state Senate as well as the state Assembly, we can get back on offense and make sure that municipalities are in the best position possible to deliver for their residents.
Describe to me, and I will wrap with this, one more, I promise. Describe to me, how would you characterize this primary and how it ended?
I mean, you couldn't write this as a story, right? And so for me, it's been a whirlwind, you know. But at the end of the day, for me, this has turned into a storybook ending.
The next governor of the great state of Wisconsin.
Tom Tiffany in West Allis Wednesday, meeting with supporters and alongside Tuesday night's Republican primary winners, a show of unity on the GOP side as well, just hours after that stunning result in the Democratic primary. I'm curious, just first, your response to the results that we saw on the Democratic side Tuesday night. Were you preparing to run against Francesca Hong?
I was prepared for whoever would come out, and it was clear the Democrat establishment, they did not want her, and so they really boosted her at the end and were able to get David Crowley across the finish line. Congratulations to David.
Is he going to be a tougher candidate to beat?
I've thought all along there's not a dime's worth of difference in the candidates on the Democrat side. I mean, they basically have adopted all the same policies. Really, the leadership of the Democrat Party has capitulated to this Democrat socialist movement. And even David Crowley said a couple weeks ago that my policies are going to be very similar to Francesca Hong's.
When we look at November, it is a full sprint now between and now November. Senator Johnson did an interview Wednesday morning after the election, and he said, we need to get Republicans to the polls. Not as many showed up in the primary as needed to, and we need President Trump to come in and tell his supporters to get to the polls. Is that going to be one of your biggest challenges between now and November?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest challenges is turnout. And I think part of the reason there wasn't as many people, there was not as dynamic of a governor's race on the Republican side. So I think that's part of the reason you see that fall off a little bit. But we got to make sure we turn out people, because we are in a position now when we get the greatest amount of turnout, Republicans win. So it will be a turnout election. Does the president's endorsement hurt or help as we head to the general now? So I think like the other side, they're going to be campaigning against Donald Trump. I'm going to be campaigning for the state of Wisconsin. And I've really stayed focused throughout this campaign. This is about being governor. This isn't about being in Wisconsin and shouting at Washington, D.C. You control the things that you can control, and that's what I'm going to do as governor. And it starts with affordability and accountability. And we are rolling out an agenda every day in regards to those issues.
You mentioned the president and what Democrats are going to do, and they've already started that. David Crowley Wednesday morning called you a mega extremist. How are you going to respond to those attacks from Democrats?
Well, they can run against Donald Trump. I'm running for the state of Wisconsin. I mean, they're going to try to divert away from the real issues of this campaign. And there's a reason for that. That's because they've been giving us the 400-year property tax increase, the over $2 billion in rate increases. At this place where we're sitting right now, his utility bill went up $400 a month in the last year. And that's because they've just been rubber stamping these increases. We have to deal with the affordability issue, and I'm going to do that. While they're talking about Donald Trump, I'm going to talk about how we're going to make Wisconsin a better state.
You have been a big supporter of the president. Is that going to help or hurt you, do you think, between now and November?
Oh, Wisconsin voters are really smart voters. They see through that stuff. I've talked to voters that are, they're like, we're Republicans, we don't vote for President Trump, but we'll vote for you. Voters are really discerning in regards to this. They can see through the fog.
Are you going to have to differentiate yourself from the president, do you think?
I just need to be who I am, which is, I mean, in my time that I've served in office, whether it's the legislature or Congress, Wisconsin always comes first. And Wisconsin will always come first when I am the next governor. And remember, I only overlap, if elected as governor, I only overlap with the president for 2 years. Then we're going to have a new president, and whether that president is Republican or Democrat, I will always do what's best for Wisconsin.
Democrats have been, and they're going to come at you pretty hard for your vote on the 2020 election. Do you regret that at all, not voting to certify the results?
No, Joe Biden won the election, and we've lived with the consequences with the massive inflation that he gave us after becoming president. Inflation went up the most in 40 years, and now it's up to us to do everything we can to fix those problems that were created from that.
Your vote,
I'm looking forward, not backwards.
Do you regret your vote, though?
No, I'm looking forward, not backwards.
I imagine the money on the left is going to come in now to back David Crowley. Do you have the money? Do you have the support you need to compete from now until November?
We will compete all the way to November 3rd.
When you look at the map, how close is this going to be? How contentious is this race going to become?
I would think Wisconsin just has a history of very close elections, and I expect this one to be the same. I mean, it's going to be a close election, and a lot of it will be driven by turnout. And so that's what we're going to do, is push that turnout. But I think there's also a real place for, some of the people that are politically homeless at this point.
Yeah.
Truly moderate Democrats that are not socialists, they can support me, because I think getting control of property taxes and your utility bills and all of these things that are part of the cost of living that state government drives, we have the winning message for them. We think some of those people are going to come over and vote for us.
Do you want the president in the state campaigning for you?
That's up to the president. The president will decide whether he's going to come to the state or not. And I mean, he's got his hands full, both nationally and internationally. They're going to do the midterm convention, so he's got his hands full. He should decide what he's going to do, because I can tell you, I independently decide what I'm going to do as far as our campaign, and we're going to do what's best to be able to win this election and do what's right for the people of the state of Wisconsin.
Would you welcome him if he wanted to come?
The president's going to make that decision. He's going to make that decision whether he comes to Wisconsin or not.
Okay, one more, I lied. Are we going to see your mom on the campaign trail? Speaking of the ads.
Well, I got to ask Mom, but she certainly is a rock star.
All right, Election Day just 79 days away if you're counting. Up next, the new governor's race poll unveiled right here. Welcome back. New polling already in the field this weekend, including from Marquette, looking ahead to the David Crowley-Tom Tiffany matchup. And now the first snapshot unveiled right here. The Badger Battleground poll commissioned by Platform Communications. David Crowley, 48, Tom Tiffany, 44. The poll taken this past Wednesday and Thursday after the primary among 500 likely voters. So let's get right to it with Republican strategist Keith Gilks, Democratic strategist Tanya Bjork, who oversaw the poll. Both of you, thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks. Keith, let's just walk me through what this poll found and where we sit here today.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is a snapshot in time right after the primary. What it tells us is it's a statistical tie at the end of the day. Yes, David Crowley is up by 4 points over Tom Tiffany. That's well within the margin of error and very typical for this type of race. We're in a purple state, so I wouldn't expect anything else, and the campaign's just starting.
Tanya, does this represent a boost, so to speak, that the candidates sometimes get coming out of?
I think that's part of it, but this poll has some kind of not great news for Tom Tiffany. I mean, technically he should probably be leading right now. He spent all summer long, running really great positive ads, and his ads were really good, trying to introduce him to voters, and that doesn't seem to have broken through, even though he was sort of unanswered all summer long.
Let me ask you about that. When you look at independents on this, Crowley leads 42-30. Is that concerning? Should that be concerning for Tiffany World?
Well, yes, because we have to get out there and get the message out about what Tom's policies are and what his positions are, and make sure people really truly understand the contrast. What you see in the poll is kind of a reflection of what the generic political environment is. We're kind of starting at 0 at the moment in terms of in the general as opposed to the primary. And so moving forward, the key part of this is going to be the independents. And look, everyone knows what our state comes down to: presidential fall elections, gubernatorial fall elections. This is plus or minus, 20, 30,000 votes. And that's where the battle's going to be fought.
What's the biggest concern for the Crowley World when you look at these numbers in terms of the work they need to do?
Well, I think there's not a lot of bad news in this poll for the Crowley folks. I mean, there is a fair amount of bad news for Tom Tiffany. The other part of it, too, is I think 61%, I think in the poll, said that they believe that the country is going in the wrong direction. That's not good for somebody who's a sitting congressman.
When we talk about the Tiffany campaign, we just heard him talking about President Trump, and Democrats are going to bring that up nonstop between now and November. How does he need to answer that question and that relationship since Trump's approval rating is dropping?
Well, look, number one, this is a gubernatorial election. It's about state issues. He is running on what it means for the state of Wisconsin in terms of his policies and how it'll impact families. Voters want to love their governor. They want to know their governor. The old saying, they want to have a beer with their governor. They may not want that necessarily with their U.S. senator or congressman or congresswoman, but they do want that with their governor, or in this case, in brandy old fashioned.
When you look at the Crowley campaign and the chaos that came out of this primary, how does he recover from that, and how does he get his sea legs, so to speak, so quickly, so fast now looking at November?
I think he pretty much recovered from the chaos. I mean, this is the comeback kid, the comeback Crowley. I think they're in a good position now. And speaking of wanting to have a beer with your governor, I think the other thing that is a big benefit to Crowley, we saw it in the primary, but also we're going to see it in the general too, is the popularity of Tony Evers. That's going to be a big thing, because people do say in many places and in this poll that they would like to have a beer with Tony Evers.
I did just ask David that question. Would you have lost if Tony Evers wouldn't have been on the trail with you? And he didn't specifically say yes or no, but I mean, will the governor need to get out with him again like we saw in this primary?
I think so. I think it's less important for the general, because people will assume that a Democratic governor supports the Democratic nominee for governor. But I think Tony Evers and his team has shown a willingness to get out there and end this thing strong. And I think that's what they're going to continue to do for the general election, too.
You guys both have been inside campaigns before, and big major campaigns. What advice, as we sit here today, would you give the Tiffany World?
I think it's just you got to get out there every single day, carry forward the issues, build your narrative, your image, tell people what you stand for, and draw that contrast so people have a clear definition of who you are and who your opponent is.
How does David Crowley win over Francesca Hong supporters?
Well, I think it started already. Francesca Hong showed up the very next morning. She conceded right away. She could have called for a recount. She didn't do that. She conceded right away. She showed up Wednesday morning for breakfast with the entire team, and I think is already committed to campaigning with him. And the Crowley team is a very smart team, and they will figure out when and where the best time to do that is. That'll become.
Does she need to stand alongside him, do you think?
Yes, she does, and I think she will.
In terms of Republicans, though, saying she's a Democratic Socialist, so that means he's a Democratic Socialist. Is this catchphrase Democratic Socialist going to be with us from now until November on both sides of this?
Not on our side. It might be on their side.
On our side. Both this election and beyond.
And beyond,
I don't
I'm
think
sure.
it's going to get dealt with in just this election cycle.
And Wisconsin obviously is unique in terms of how this all played out in the last week and a half, but does it say anything about the larger progressive movement sweeping the country that this did not succeed here in the state?
I think it's too early to tell what this says particularly about the entire progressive movement. I think it's a little too soon to tell.
All right, it is a long yet a short road to November. Republican strategist Keith Gilks, Democrat Tanya Borg. Thank you both very much. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Up next, the newest justice. The newest Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice Chris Taylor, officially a member of the state's high court, a ceremonial swearing-in taking place Friday in Madison. Taylor officially took her oath during a private ceremony when the court's new term started August 1st. Taylor beat Maria Lazar back in April. Her win expands the court's liberal majority to 5-2. We'll be right back. Before we go, some ratings changes from those watching the governor's race from afar. Sabato's Crystal Ball at the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia, moving the governor's race from toss-up to leans Democrat after David Crowley's win. The Cook Political Report still classifying the race as a toss-up. That is our show today. All of our interviews are posted on the WISN 12 YouTube page. Just find and subscribe to the Upfront playlist. Thank you for your time today. We'll see you right back here next Sunday for Upfront.